Hey guys, back for day 11 of the Love Dare. Today's a really big day. This one, as I was reading, it's just powerful. Got a lot of deep truth in it. Day 11 is Love Cherishes. Husbands ought also to love their own wives as their own bodies. Ephesians 5:28. Consider these two scenarios. A man's older car begins having serious trouble, so he takes it to a mechanic. After an assessment is made, he's told it'll need a complete overhaul, which would tax his limited budget. Because of the expensive repairs, he determines to get rid of the car and spend his funds on a new vehicle. Seems reasonable, right? Another man, an engineer, accidentally crushes his hand in a piece of equipment. He rushes to the hospital and has it x-rayed, finding that numerous bones are broken. Although frustrated and in pain, he willingly uses his savings to have it doctored and placed in a cast, then gingerly nurses it back to health over the following months. This, too, probably seems reasonable to you. The problem within our culture is that marriage is more often treated like the first scenario, a discardable possession. When your relationship experiences difficulty, you're urged to dump your spouse for a newer model. But those who have this view do not understand the significant bond between a husband and wife. The truth is, marriage is more like the second scenario. You're part of one another. You'd never cut off your hand if it was injured, but would pay whatever you could afford for the best medical treatment possible. That's because your hand is priceless to you. It's part of who you are. And so is your mate. Marriage is a beautiful mystery created by God, joining two lives together as one. This not only happens physically, but spiritually and emotionally. You start off sharing the same house, the same bed, the same last name. Your identity as individuals has been joined into one. When you find success at your job, both of you rejoice. When one of you goes through a tragedy, both of you feel it. But somewhere along the way, you experience disappointment and pain. Your relationship gets broken. The sobering reality that you married a very imperfect person sets in. This, however, does not change the fact that your spouse is still a part of you. Ephesians 5:28 and 29 says, "Husbands ought also to love their own wives as their own bodies. He who loves his own wife loves himself, for no one ever hated his own flesh, but nourishes and cherishes it." The word cherish means to make warm. Imagine a newborn baby who feels alone, cold, hungry, and afraid, longing to be held. Then his new mother lovingly picks him up, nursing, caressing, and holding her infant child. Her careful attention and tender affection warms her baby both physically and emotionally. This is the biblical picture of how a husband and wife are to cherish one another. Life is cold and unpredictable. Everyday stress can wear us down. Relationships can sometimes be hard and go through seasons of winter instead of those warm days of spring. It's our responsibility, above every other person on the face of the earth, to step in and tenderly touch, caress, and warm the life and the heart of our spouse. Much of this cherishing can be done in how we gently touch our mate in non-sexual ways. Coming up behind your wife at the sink and kissing her on the neck, reaching over in the car and caressing his arm, putting your arm around her while sitting at church, walking closely beside him and taking his hand, holding her while you watch a movie together, nourishing them with the warmth of your affection. Remember, when you show love to your spouse, you are showing love to yourself as well. But there's a flip side to this coin. When you mistreat your mate, you're also mistreating yourself. Think about it. Your lives are now interwoven together. Your spouse cannot experience joy or pain, blessing or cursing, without it also affecting you. So when you attack your mate, it's like attacking your own body. It's time to let love change your thinking. It's time for you to realize that your spouse is as much a part of you as your hand, your eye, or your heart. She too needs to be loved and cherished. And if she has brokenness and issues causing pain or frustration, then you should nourish and cherish her with the same love and tenderness as you would a bodily injury. If he's wounded in some way, you should think of yourself as an instrument that helps bring warmth and healing to his life. In light of this, think about how you treat your spouse's physical body. Do you cherish it as your own? Do you treat it with respect and tenderness? Do you take pleasure in who they are, or do you make them feel foolish or embarrassed? Just as you guard the safety and well-being of your own body, you should treasure every part of your spouse as a priceless gift. Whenever a husband looks into the eyes of his wife, he should remember that he who loves his wife loves himself. And a wife should remember that when she loves him, she's also giving love and honor to herself. When you look at your mate, you're looking at a part of you. So treat her well. Speak highly of him. Nourish and cherish the love of your life. Today's dare is this. How can you warm the heart of your spouse today? Look for opportunities to bring warmth to the coldness in his or her life. If possible, give them an unexpected tender touch. Choose a gesture that says, I cherish you, and do it with sincerity. This one is such a big deal because it's one of those really great deceptions that happens so quickly and easily. And the problem has to do with the fact that God's invisible, right? He is invisible. We don't get to have contact with him with the 5 physical senses that we have unless his spirit moves into our realm, which it does, thank goodness, and we do get to feel him, and you should. He doesn't guarantee it 24/7, but you should have some experiences with God's love. However, to say that you love God is an easy thing to do. I can be in worship in the morning and tell God I love him not a million, but a lot of times. I can worship him, I can tell him how wonderful he is, how much I love him, etc., etc. But what the Bible talks about is that there's some checkpoints in life that have to do with, the great commandment is to love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength, and then to love your neighbor as yourself. Now, it's interesting that it doesn't say, and love your husband or wife as yourself. It doesn't do that because your husband or wife is a part of yourself. And so those are 2 checkpoints. How are you loving your husband or wife? How are you treating yourself? Are you being a good steward of your temple and how you're living and being a good steward of it and all the many different ways that stewardship applies? Those are the ways that you actually show the Lord that you're loving him truly, because it's easy to say. It's not necessarily easy to have his love come to you and through you. And the only way to know that is how you're loving yourself, which is you and your spouse. And so the one in contrast that's probably easiest to check is, how are you loving your spouse? That's where the rubber meets the road. And then beyond that, how are you treating your neighbor, which is the next checkpoint, the dipstick in the line, is to see how are you loving. How we love outwardly is how real the love is between us and the Lord. So, man, that's if you can swallow that and live with it and really begin to make some strides in those areas, that's when you really know you're in the real thing. That is the real thing. So it's good stuff today. Praying that God's working in your heart, working in your marriage, and that you're getting more and more of his love into your heart and then through your heart to those that mean the most to you. So praying behind you guys. Bless you. Bye-bye.